And welcome back to the morning show. It's time for Motivational Monday, and we all come with emotional baggage, and it can really make us human, but adding junk to that baggage can create long-lasting problems. So Daniel Applegate with True North Counseling Center is here to help us learn about letting go just a little bit. Good morning, Daniel. How are we doing today?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
Excellent so far. Pretty excited for a Monday, so really can't complain. So we always talk about spring cleaning when it comes to our homes and property. How can we address spring cleaning when it comes to our emotions?
I think it's just as important, if not more important, especially today. I mean, we're less than 2 weeks away from the first anniversary of our first COVID diagnosis here in town. And if you think about the last year, um, gosh, it's been a lot for a lot of people. A lot of the emotional things that people brought into the pandemic have exacerbated and gotten worse over the last year. And so when we start thinking about spring cleaning our house, let's also start talking about what does spring cleaning internally look like in terms of what are some of the emotions that I'm hanging on to that aren't serving me well any longer, and what are some routines that maybe I've fallen into in the last year during isolation and COVID that aren't serving me well, and maybe trying to focus a little bit more on wellness.
Daniel, how do we take some of those first steps altogether? What do we need to essentially recognize when it comes to taking those steps?
Well, let's start by recognizing some of the emotions that we might be feeling. And I'm not going to say this is a blanket statement for all men, but most men have a very difficult time expressing emotions and knowing the difference between fear, anxiety, humiliation, and guilt. So a really good first step is just to own up to the fact that, like, okay, I've made it through this entire year, and, you know, but for the grace of God, right? Like a lot of us haven't wanted for anything in the last year, and that's a blessing. But at the same time, our internal emotional well-being has undoubtedly taken a toll. And so starting by admitting that you could maybe use some help, and wanting to get some education on emotional IQ and how to identify emotions. Particularly anger is one that I'd like to focus on today, because anger to me is a very surface emotion. It's not a real emotion, anger. Anger is so easy for us to feel, and we've been brought up to know that anger is very much an acceptable form of emotion. But under anger is always hurt and fear. And so understanding some of the symptoms, with fear, you're going to have the tight stomach and the cramps. Anxiety is very fear-based. Sleeplessness, tuning out. The hostility is like anger, but it doesn't really require anything to set off. But a lot of anger is hiding deeper wounds, and so under anger is always pain and always fear. And so getting to the bottom of what those things lie within is a really good first place to start.
When it comes to some of these long-lasting effects, if we don't address some of this emotional baggage, what can happen in the long run?
Well, you're not going to have any happy relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, I can say that as a blanket statement. If you don't get your own stuff in check, then you're never going to be a viable partner. You're not going to be a healthy partner. And so thinking about that for a second as well, in this last year, a lot of people have gotten stuck in um, domestic violence situations that are much more difficult to get out of now. If you find yourself in one of those, please reach out to Courage Connection. They are here to help. Substance abuse, people who may have had a handle on their sobriety going into a pandemic may have fallen off the wagon, and that's okay. There are plenty of resources and support in the area. There are great meetings. Rose Krantz has a great place for substances, as well as Carl's intensive outpatient unit. So those are a lot of times the invisible victims of all of this are the people who are stuck in domestic violence and substance abuse. And so finding the courage to reach out, to try to get out, the shame and the guilt are shame and guilt are like the evil twins, right? And if you combine those with depression or anxiety, it just keeps us really, really stuck. And so being able to understand the guilt and the shame with the anxiety and depression, that's what's got people stuck. Um, and coming to counseling, we can help you get unstuck. That guilty feeling of being very restless, of feeling confined or suffocated, an overwhelming desire to escape, all of those things. We're all feeling so much right now. And there's not a single person out there who couldn't benefit from some sort of counseling to some degree.
And if people have some questions or concerns, how can they reach out to you to learn more about this?
So they can reach out to True North Counseling Center at 217-403-3352. We have a Facebook page. We have a website, TrueNorthCounselingCU.com. You can also find me at Hippie Fire Witch on Instagram, and there's a podcast that's about to come out called Therapist. And I'll keep all of our socials updated on that as well. A great podcast I might suggest looking at is My Trauma Healing Journey. That's a really, really great podcast that talks about complex PTSD, which is particular to early childhood experiences. Lots and lots of resources out there. Let's go into spring and take our mental health by the horns and work on getting well.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you this Monday, and we hope you have a great week.
Thank you so much. You too.
Talk to you later. Jack has your forecast next. We'll be right back.